Alright, the topic of this video is spirituality, and this is just to give you a fair warning, so to speak. If you're not interested in spirituality, or if you're one of those close-minded theists who don't tolerate differing points of view, just go away right now. I don't need you here, and I don't want you here. This is not a video which is intended for debating spiritual ideas and religion and all that. I've made other videos in the past which are open for that sort of discussion, but this right here, this is not about am I right, are you right, or I don't need any anti-spiritual atheist either to tell me how delusional I am and that I should get back to reality and or ask me what my evidence is for this. This is not the point of this video. So if you're in one of those categories, close the video right now, go away, have a look at some kitties or whatever other stuff on YouTube. So what I wanted to talk about was a thought that I had recently, sort of a realization. Not in the sense that the divine truth has been revealed to me or some crap like that. No, not in that sense, not a revelation. More like a spiritual hypothesis, let's put it like that. Or just stuff I made up, if you if you want to look at it like that. So the thought that occurred to me was that life is a lot like a video game, in the sense that your soul or higher self, depending on your beliefs, whatever you want to call it, that which exists independent of your physical body, that this is sort of like the player, and you and me, like we are right now in this physical existence, we are the characters that the player generates in sort of a open-ended sandbox game like, Skyrim and Fallout and Minecraft and whatever else. And the physical death of this persona, of this character, is inconsequential to the player, to the soul or higher self, or whatever, or just consciousness. The reason for it to create these characters and to take on these roles is to experience something new, something that it would not be able to do otherwise. And as far as I understand it, the whole point of living is just experiencing things from a limited and different perspective, in the sense that if you are just a consciousness on a non-physical spiritual plane, you can do anything. You can just create things instantly, just make them pop into existence, and you can travel wherever, and you can do anything. However, when you take physical form, when you incarnate in the physical realm, and you all of a sudden, your surroundings are filtered through the brain, through this receptor, through this this vessel that connects your consciousness to the physical body, which allows you to interact with the physical body, the physical surroundings. That makes it all different. It certainly, all of a sudden, rules are introduced. Because when you're outside of the physical, there are no rules. You can do anything. For it to be a game, it needs to have rules. A game is only a game with rules. and restrictions. If, for example, in Super Mario, if you had no rules, like you can only jump so and so high, and otherwise you can only run, and you can only move on this and those platforms, and this and that. If those rules were not present, if you could just jump from the beginning right to the end of the level, or you could just fly on top of the screen all the way through the level, it wouldn't be a game, would it? And even if you were to classify it as a game, it would be pretty boring. But since you have those limitations and those rules, that's what makes it different. That's what makes it a different experience. Like, for instance, playing a 2D game. This is pretty much alien to what you would normally encounter in everyday, real, physical life. Because obviously you can move in three dimensions. And even three-dimensional games have their limitations. And so that allows you to gain insight that you wouldn't have otherwise. Which is just an experience that you can only have within this set of rules. And just like in different games, it is very interesting to generate different characters, like in the Elder Scrolls games. It makes a huge difference whether you play as a thief, warrior, or mage, or something in between. The role is entirely different. You have different options, you have different equipment, whatever. And you can make different choices. You can, like in many games, you can either play the badass or the goody, or a more ambivalent character who makes, has its own morality and all of those things. And it's pretty interesting, at least for me, to generate different characters and to try out what does it mean to be this character. And the same with life. What does it mean to be born into in this or that place, into this or that body, with a certain genetic makeup, which determines to some extent what you are capable of thinking and learning, and your innate abilities and whatnot. That makes a huge difference. And your social surroundings. I mean, someone who is born on, let's say, Melanesian island is vastly different from someone who is born in, let's say, Tokyo. Or the life of a slave in colonial America would be vastly different from a Viking Huskal or from a shaman in the Stone Age. These are all vastly different experiences. And you would is move from one character to the other, and when one character dies, it is of no real consequence to the player, other than that you still have those experiences. The experiences are lost for the character, because the character does not exist anymore, but the player has had those experiences. So to the soul or higher self, they are still there, they still accumulate. And who knows, maybe after a while you're tired of the game and you want to try a different game, and so your consciousness travels to a whole different world and incarnates there. Maybe a parallel world or whatever, or a different time and whatnot. Yeah, so that's my spiritual perspective. That's how I view the purpose of life. It's just experience. It's not about carrying out divine orders from a god or goddess or multiple gods or whatever. And it's not about being a morally good person. And please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you don't have to be a morally good person. You can just, be the greatest asshole in the universe and exploit everything and everyone and be reckless and immoral and whatnot. No, that's not what I'm talking about. You will still benefit from establishing some sort of moral code for yourself, being a moral person. What being moral means is different from person to person, but you will still, and your surrounding obviously also, will still benefit from you acting morally. So I'm not saying, even though in the big picture for this higher self, it might be irrelevant whether your actions in this life were moral or immoral. I mean, by whose standards? Once you're dead and once your physical body is gone, and once there's no one anymore no other human being in physical form who can judge your actions, who is to say? Who is to say? There is no objective morality, at least that's what I think. But there is still subjective morality, and it's important. I mean, I don't know if immoral or harmful actions will get back to you eventually, like Buddhists believe that, you will harm that you do to others will also result in harm to yourself on the long run. I don't know if that's the case, but I think that being moral and living a moral life is rewarding in and of itself. This is not meant to attack differing spiritual beliefs. The only thing that I condemn, that I think is immoral, is if you insist that everyone else has to have the same view, the same spirituality, and has to follow the same rules as you do. That's wrong. You just can't do that. And in the same way, I would not dare to say that I'm right and you're wrong. No. BS. That will be pure and utter BS. This is just what I personally believe. If you have different beliefs, that's fine. And I mean, in a way, even if it turned out that I am right in my spiritual beliefs, that can still, in a way, mean that you're right. Because what I'm saying is that consciousness creates its own reality. In the physical existence right here, it doesn't have that much potential, because we are, after all, living in a consensus reality. There are multiple conscious beings around here who together form this reality. So I cannot just create something out of thin air. But on the spiritual realm, which can also include lucid dreams, for example. If you don't know what that is, it's basically just a dream in which you realize that you're dreaming, and in which you can suddenly manifest things and do things that you couldn't normally do. So even if I'm right, that still means that you're creating your spiritual environment. So after death, you might end up in heaven, or nirvana, or whatever, or at the side of your particular god. So yes, that was part of my spiritual belief. Like I said, I don't insist on being right. It's just right for me. That's what I believe, that's what makes sense to me, that's what feels right. And if you disagree, well, feel free to. And if you think I'm full of it and I'm just making stuff up and I'm delusional, well, feel free to. I don't mind. And also feel free to comment. But like I said, just don't try to start these religious debates in which you try to bash the other side and assert that you're right and they are wrong and only your religion is right. If you start doing that, you might very well get blocked. So don't even think about it. Other than that, have a great experience.